Now, what if you're a leader of a team then? If you are you are watching somebody like me who's work, 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 and then at least I come up for air and I ask the question. But like, if you're a supervisor, you're calling them milestones or benchmarks.
Yep.
What does it look like to be a good leader who supports their people, doesn't get in the way, but also has those benchmarks or those moments? Is it just as simple as a weekly one-on-one where you ask them how they're doing, or like, is there more to it? Paint me a picture. What does that look like?
Well, anything with leading people is probably never that simple in any respect.
Fair enough.
But what we found that was really interesting is that leaders, on the one hand, are really good at seeing the big picture. Leaders often get more information than their reports do. So they reported feeling like they understood the big picture and the need for change better. And leaders reported being grittier. And when leaders were confronted with, what do? Do you change? Leaders were less likely to abandon a plan that wasn't working. And I guess it makes sense, because if you're a leader, like, maybe that was your plan. If that was a leader, your success might be judged on how well we stick to the strategic plan. But what that means is that leaders can sometimes be the worst culprits of holding their people back from change. So we found a huge opportunity there in leaders really being willing to, again, strike that balance between maybe we do need to invest more resources and work a little harder, or maybe we need to evaluate. And there's not a single right answer, but it's going to come in that resource evaluation, those benchmarks. But leaders could really stand across the board to do a better job of considering, is this the right goal? I know it's in the strategic plan, but is this the right goal? Or if we're struggling, and if everybody, right, if the same one person is always struggling, it's probably that person. But if everybody's struggling, if people who often aren't struggling are struggling, that tells me it's probably the goal. And maybe that's not the right goal, or maybe the goal needs to be reevaluated. And that's where I talk about, so we've got, right, we talked about the strategy for digging in, that we want to make sure if we're digging in the right place, that we're evaluating our resources and setting those benchmarks. But if we hit a roadblock, there's another strategy that we can use. And this is what I call the shortcut. So I mentioned like, maybe this goal isn't the right goal. The first thing that I think people should do if they sense that they're digging in on the wrong goal is really look at that goal and see if it's the right size. Because a lot of times, if you have to give up on a goal, the problem is that the goal was too small. Did you think I was going to say too big?
Yeah.
Yes. I saw your face. No.
I was ready for too small. Yes. Okay. Or ready for too big. Okay.
But here's why I say that. Because what often happens is we confuse goals and plans. A lot of what we call a goal is actually a plan. And you can tell the difference like this. Ready? If there's just one way to get there, if it's like A to B, right, I'm going to fill this out and then I'm going to do this. And then once that's done, this will happen. And that's a plan.
That's a plan.
That's a plan. So for me, for example, I always thought I was going to have a baby. And then I was diagnosed with cancer at age 26. Can't do that. And I told myself, it's fine. Like, you're young, you're 26. You can always foster, or you can mentor. You can be a really cool aunt, do a lot of volunteer work. Maybe someday they'll let somebody with your health history adopt. And so I did some volunteer work and met a teenage boy and ultimately adopted a teenager. And I also mentor. I do a ton of volunteer work. And so that is called, when you take what you thought was your goal, but you realize it's just a plan. What I realized is my goal was not to have a baby or even to be a mom. My actual goal was bigger. My actual goal is to leave a legacy. That's really what I want, Brian. Like, I don't know how long I'm going to get on this planet, but I want to know that when I'm gone, I'm leaving a legacy.
Yep.
And that is called supersizing your goal. So you take what you thought was your goal, and maybe it's not achievable anymore, but you take that goal and you supersize it to the largest thing that it means, the biggest expression of it. And for me, that was leaving a legacy. And so that supersize goal, that's a real goal. It's not a plan, right? And then that's step one. And then step two, you build parallel plans to reach your supersize goal.